Hello. This video aims at demonstrating how financial planning can help visualize the future for different types of investors. In this scenario, we have Mr. and Mrs. Property, not their real names. They are clients of ours who we looked at some financial planning for, and they allowed us to use their circumstances anonymized to help others. As ever, we start by looking through a family's position. And here we've got Mr. and Mrs. in their 50s with 3 children, ranging from 10 through to 25. They have a general household spend need of around £6,000 per month. On top of this, they like to spend around £3,000 per month on holidays and fun stuff. However, as they get older, we appreciate that this may well slow down. So when they reach 85, indicated here, this holiday and fun stuff spending slows down to £2,000 per month. Alongside this, they've got some great objectives, mainly to help their children with house deposits when their children reach age 30, and then some milestone holidays on their 60th and 70th birthdays. In earnings now, the earnings for Mr. are £125,000 a year and Mrs. is earning £65,000 a year. But what's interesting with these clients, and why we've called them Mr. and Mrs. Property, is that they've built up 3 separate property rentals that they have always envisaged would be their pension in retirement. Their focus on savings has been towards these rather than other vehicles. And for that reason, they have relatively modest cash savings at £35,000. They've built up some smaller ISAs at £22,000 and £34,000. They have their main residence, which is valued at £850,000, and they've focused heavily on paying this debt down, so there's no debt on that property. However, they appreciate that there will be a point in time where they will need a smaller property, and they've budgeted £675,000 for a future home for life, and that can be seen in this spike when they reach age 80, where they're planning on selling their current property and moving into their home for life. Their 3 rental properties are valued at £125,000, £184,000 and £220,000, and each of those have different levels of debt associated to them. They've got relatively smaller pensions because all of their focus has been building up their property assets over time. However, they have worked their whole lives, and so they will be entitled to the full state pension. And then we've got some smaller rental property expenses. As ever, we have our company standard assumptions on this, which aim to be realistically cautious. The objective there is to ensure that people can afford their financial future, not be too prudent, but also not be too optimistic. And so what does this show us when we look at these clients? Well, we can see here that it generally looks blue, all of the plan, although you can start to see some red creep into the plan from their 80s. And if we look down on the bottom plan, which shows their assets, the reason for that is if we take away any property assets, they've built up these assets over time. These are their liquid assets, so their pensions, investments and savings here, which build up while they're working, but get spent relatively quickly as they're in retirement. They then sell the main residence, which creates a little bit more cash, but that's quickly exhausted. And from here on in, there's no more liquid capital. Now, it's not to say these clients aren't wealthy, because all of these assets sit within property. However, when you drill into the individual chart here and we start to explore these areas, we can zoom in to later life. And so what we do is we just take a view of these later years, and once this is moved out of the system, we can see there's now a shortfall in later life. And this shortfall is around £3,000 per month, but this is future-proofed in terms of or looking at values in the future. So the structure is nearly there, but it's not quite there. They afford to live the majority of their life how they want to, but there's a shortfall at the end, even though they've got this rental income and they've got these assets. So the other question these clients had was, do we really want to be landlords throughout their lives? And the answer was no. And so they said, what would things look like if we were to sell some of these properties over time? And this is something that we could forecast forward for them. So looking forward, we now built in a staged sale of the different properties. And so we have the same timeline where we're helping with house deposits and big holidays. However, these little pockets of money with a hand underneath are the rental property sales. So the first one when they're 62, the second age 68, and the third here in age when they are 75. And looking at how this looks in the graph, you can see these little pockets here where there are sales of the properties. Now, what's interesting to see now when we look at this as a single chart is that there is no longer any red in the plan. If we are to zoom in, I can do that here. If we zoom in on those later years, how we did in the past, you can see there's no longer any red in the plan. So even though they've lost that rental income, they have the ability to spend the capital that was in those properties. And we can see that when we look at their asset position. If I take out the properties, in the past it's been growing, and where the money goes when a property sale goes through is into these investments. In fact, if we take pensions out of the way, we can see it even clearer. They build up some savings and investments, but there's a big increase and a spike here where they sell one property, another big increase and a spike here when they sell the other, and that gets spent again, and then another big increase and a spike here. And so when we then look at the overall asset position, we can see that actually, because of that increase in investments here at different periods, the pensions haven't needed to be sold as much. And so there are still liquid assets, pensions, all the way through until they die age 100. And over here we have the main residence and we have some pension savings remaining. So by selling the properties over time, at times that are convenient to them, they do lose out on the rental income. However, when we look and compare the charts, there is no longer a shortfall in their living standards or income between the two. Where there was red in this one, and you could see there's a shortfall here of 31,000, there is no red over here, and there is no shortfall. So it shows that actually over time, potentially selling some assets and being able to spend the capital can be really beneficial for allowing people to enjoy retirement and be comfortable that they've got enough liquid assets. It can also take away some of the pain and stress and hassle of managing properties when you're older. Hopefully this has been useful. These plans can be bespoke to anybody's personal circumstances and give people the ability to really map out their future and run as many of these what-if scenarios and different plans as they can envisage. Thank you for watching, and we hope to speak to you soon.